Welcome into Words with Wallace. I'm your host, Nick Wallace. Coming at you, it is Monday, April 28th. What's going on, everybody? Hopefully, you are enjoying round one of the NBA playoffs so far. Got a great podcast for you today. As you can tell by the title of the episode, I'm joined by my good friend, RJ Rosazza. You guys probably remember him from previous podcast appearance. He is my Celtics correspondent, and it's been way too long since we talked about my Boston Celtics. So obviously had the deep dive this series against the Magic, how we think the Celtics will fare with the rest of their road to Banner 19, hopefully, and what are the biggest roadblocks, all that good stuff. So we're going to talk all about the Celtics in a little bit. But before we bring in RJ, I actually just got done recording with him. I'm actually recording this before the Golden State Warriors and Houston Rockets game tips off. We just made the executive decision around here to not watch Miami versus Cleveland, and ultimately that decision was right because as I got done rapping with RJ, we checked the score and saw that the Heat were down by 50. So needless to say, that series is over, and Cleveland is going to advance in round two, and that isn't the only series that's wrapped up. Obviously, OKC and Memphis is history. OKC won that series in a sweep as well. Not sure if you guys caught the quotes from Ja Morant, and to be totally honest with you, I didn't catch the full context of the interview, but it was reported that Ja Morant essentially said that he had the Thunder figured out before he got hurt with an unfortunate hip injury about halfway through game three, and had he stayed in the series, maybe it could have gone a bit differently. It's good to know that Ja Morant is as out of touch as he's always been throughout his career. It feels like mentally he's like a 15-year-old and can't seem to wrap his mind around the fact that that team had no chance in that series against OKC, whether Ja was playing or not. But gotta love the confidence, I guess. So again, that series is history. And sadly, we got some really unfortunate news in the Milwaukee-Indiana series. Damian Lillard went down in the first quarter pretty early in the game last night, and it was later reported today that he tore his Achilles. Brutal news for Damian Lillard, brutal news for the Milwaukee Bucks. It really, really sucks. I love watching Damian Lillard. I just got done talking in my previous podcast about part of the reason why I picked the Bucks in the series is because I feel like people are sleeping on Dame. He had a really great year with the Bucks, and I know it was clunky and the supporting cast isn't great, but I still believe that Dame could rise to the occasion. And unfortunately, even before the injury, it just didn't look like he was 100%. Obviously missed a lot of time with the blood clots in his calf, and then he comes back and he's not quite the same guy. And then just topping it off with a brutal injury that really takes a full year to recover. So not only does this take Damian Lillard out of the mix for obviously the rest of this series, but all of next year as well, he's likely going to miss, especially being a smaller guard at his age. I mean, just brace yourself, Bucks fans, for a long offseason of Giannis in a lot of trade machines and different ways for people to rebuild the Bucks, because the reality of this situation is that the Bucks championship window is probably closed already. I don't think they would have beaten Indiana either way, but the championship window is officially slammed shut with this horrible Dame news hanging over the Bucks' fortunes for next season. But let's keep it pushing, talk about some other series, and fly around real quick before we bring in RJ for some Celtics talk. You also have the series between the Knicks and the Pistons that's currently sitting with the Knicks up 3-1. This series has been incredible. I think every single game has been decided by like 10 points or less. The largest point differential was in game one, and even that game was super entertaining when the Knicks completed a big comeback. It's looking likely that New York is going to walk out victorious from this round one series, but you got to give the Pistons a lot of credit. What they're able to do despite the offense not really being where you want it to be. The Pistons have really depended on Dennis Schroeder for big stretches to close games, not just to give a spark off the bench, but really as like a second ball handler alongside Cade. So I love what I've seen from Cade. I love what I saw from the Pistons. There was a really controversial ending to the game yesterday in which there was a non-call on a Tim Hardaway Jr. three-point attempt. He may or may not have been fouled by Josh Hart as time expired with an opportunity to win the game at the buzzer. Ultimately, I kind of liked the fact that it wasn't a non-call. I understand if you see a clip of that foul, you'd probably assume that that was the wrong decision and the refs messed it up. But if you watch that game, you see that the New York-Detroit series has been officiated so differently than a regular season game. It's ridiculous, the physicality, what these guys are getting away with. And with how many calls they let go during the course of that game, and I watched it all start to finish, I really don't blame the officials for not deciding the game on like a really soft foul. And I know that Josh Hart was in the air and Tim Hardaway got him on the pump fake, so maybe he should have been rewarded, but that's just not how the game was called. And so I do think the Knicks are going to be able to win that series in 5 or 6 games, but that one has been a lot of fun as well. Obviously, Houston and Golden State, that tips off later today. We had a really terrible news with Jimmy Butler having a really hard fall at the end of the first quarter in the second game of this series, and that put Golden State off track for that game, so the series ended up being a 1-1 tie after that, but then the Warriors were able to rally. It really just feels like the Houston Golden State series is from like a completely different era with how low scoring the games are, with how physical it is, with how difficult points are to come by. If it wasn't for Steph, really being in the series and throwing the game off because he's still like making 30 footers and fighting through double teams and finding a way to produce, even without Jimmy Butler. I mean, he put up 36, 9, and 7 last game. Like, this is just such an unbelievable series from Steph with what the refs are letting Houston get away with on the defensive end of the court. Steph is still able to produce and find a way to have a productive offense without Jimmy Butler. It's crazy. So I'm looking forward to seeing, again, game 4 of that series tip off in a little bit. I think the headline today, at least in the NBA circles, is the fact that the Wolves just went up 3-1 on the Lakers in a really exciting series. Somehow the Wolves continue to be playoff risers. We probably had the best game of Anthony Edwards' career yesterday, 43, 9, and 6 with just one turnover on 52% shooting from the field. The fact that he went toe-to-toe with Luka and LeBron, and as far as Luka creating his own offense, he was on one yesterday, and Ant was still the best player in the series. It's reminiscent of last year's first round with the Wolves, in which Anthony Edwards kind of took it to Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and was the best player in that series, which was surprising at the time. But this is a whole new class that Ant has entered with his play this season. The fact that the outside shooting is as polished as it is, it seems like his handle and his decision-making are far improved from last season. I mean, I'm not saying the series is over, because if there's anybody that's going to be able to find a way to rally and come back from a 3-1 series deficit. I mean, we've already seen LeBron James do it before, and having Luka in his corner, the fact that game 5 is going to be in LA. So if LA is able to swing that one, they just have to win one game in Minnesota before they're ultimately back in LA for a game 7 matchup. So again, that series is not done, but I don't think nearly anyone was picking the Wolves to win that series. So huge credit to the Timberwolves. Every year I seem to do this. I seem to doubt the Wolves, and then once I actually watch the game, it's just so hard for me to root against those guys with how fun that Anthony Edwards is to watch. And then finally, the best series of them all in the first round, and no surprise, it's Nuggets versus Clippers. RJ and I talked about this series a little bit, but it is still worth mentioning and catching you guys up on what took place. Obviously, we talked about it a little bit, that Denver was able to win game 1, pulled that one out in overtime. Then the Clippers rally back with one of the best games of Kawhi Leonard's entire career. 39 points on 15 of 19 shooting, and kind of rattled Jokic on the other end as well. It was as close to a bad Jokic game as we're ever going to see in game 2 of that series. 7 turnovers, some bad defense, and some weird mental mistakes, but you had MPJ kind of enter back into the fold and play through the shoulder injury, which was impressive to see. Then you go to game 3, the Clippers absolutely whoop the Nuggets' ass. The Nuggets look like they're absolutely sitting ducks at that point. Looks like they have no chance. Intuit Dome is rocking. And then, of course, we have arguably the game of the series so far, the game on Saturday in which the Nuggets won 101-99. The Aaron Gordon buzzer beater off of a wild Jokic shot attempt as time expires. Outstanding play from Aaron Gordon. And Jokic was magnificent in this game as well. 36 points, 21 boards, 8 assists in a dominant third quarter stretch in which the Nuggets stretched the lead as far as 20 points. The Clippers came all the way back, really threw off the Nuggets with the zone defense. But ultimately, the Nuggets were still able to pull that out because of Aaron Gordon's heroics. So I have no idea how that Nuggets-Clippers series is going to end. Hopefully they don't just completely beat the crap out of one another and tear themselves apart before they have the opportunity to face OKC, who obviously just wrapped up their series against Memphis. So we'll see how the rest equation plays into that, because I'd be really shocked if Nuggets-Clippers didn't go 7 games at this point. So again, very excited for game 5. So that is my rapid recap of all the playoff series. Yes, I'm dialed in on all of them. Yes, I'm really enjoying Nuggets, Clippers, Lakers, Wolves, and Rockets, Warriors in particular. But obviously, had to bring on my guy RJ to talk some Boston Celtics, and that's what we are going to do for the remainder of this podcast. And here we are with my guy RJ Rosazza here to talk Boston Celtics on the road to 19. RJ, it's been well overdue. It's been far too long since the last time we had you on the pod. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, dude. Well, I wouldn't be bringing you in if it wasn't a special occasion here as we nervously watch. 3-1 against the Orlando Magic. I figured before we got too far into a Celtics playoff preview, got to give the Magic some credit as we sit here and record. They're headed to Boston tomorrow night, hopefully to close things out at home. But before we get too far into things, I wanted to kick it over to you just to see, in general, we're 4 games into round 1. How are you feeling about this series against the Magic?
Yeah, so I think you're right. You got to give credit to Orlando. I think they fought really hard in games 3 and 4 in front of their, home crowd. I think they could have laid over after games 1 and 2. For the Celtics, I've been a little underwhelmed with the performance, but that's sometimes, I don't even like saying this, but I feel like sometimes for these top couple seeds, it's almost like the first round could be a bye. And I think you kind of touched on this maybe a few episodes ago. Like the last month, month and a half of the NBA regular season is just so unserious. And I think you see these guys shaking off a lot of rust. Like, they haven't played meaningful basketball games in a couple of months. So I've definitely noticed that. And I think last night, if they had lost last night, I don't think I would have been like concerned about them losing the whole series. But then I think we would have entered the state where, like, okay, they're kind of playing with their food a little too much here. Like, the last thing we need is them putting more miles on their legs. Like, I mean, they lose last night. That means they have to go back to Orlando no matter what. So at the end of the day, they're still up 3-1. I think as a fan, you have to take that, and you can't really complain.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it really comes down to how much wear and tear do you need to put on your guys? You know, how banged up are you going to be? How much effort do you have to exert in round one, especially because we're going to get to this. I think it's really hard to argue anything but the fact that the Celtics road this year looks a lot more daunting than what it did at this time last year. So it's like, if you can scrape by round one in 4 games, I mean, for me, I'm cool with dropping 1 to Orlando. I think it was a close game. It could have gone either way. I mean, we can get more into the weeds and talk about game 3 in a bit if we want to. But I think in reality, like, I was mentally prepared to lose 1. But once it goes to 6 and then the series, you know, Orlando gets another game in there, that's where I'm going to be nervous. So as of right now, I think it's okay, assuming we are able to take care of things at Boston. I'm going to knock on wood real quick, too. I feel like I've already jinxed the team about 4 times, and we're 3 minutes into this episode here. But just through 4 games, was there, I just want to keep a big picture for a second here. Was there anything that you learned about our team, or just as a whole, what was like the most surprising thing to you 4 games into this series?
I was kind of surprised, like, how sensitive we were to the hard play that are like the KCP foul on Tatum. Like, let's be honest, like, it wasn't that bad. And I don't know if Al Horford is PMSing or something, but he's all uptight. Like, even last night when I think it was Wendell Carter might have like barely pushed Derek White to the ground, and you got Tatum like, oh, you got to give a flagrant there. Like, where I get frustrated is you have your head coach who's like, oh, I love seeing all this blood. Like, I love it. And then clearly your players don't really match that tone, as like they've, to me, have come off as soft. Like, I'm so sick of seeing Tatum grab his wrists too. Yeah.
Apparently that's his new celebration. I think he said Shireman came up with that after the last game, so he like grabs his wrist after every 3 now, which I was like, all right. I mean, it's fine. I think you touched on something there that honestly, like, I think I noticed. I don't think I ever like actually wrote it down in my notes or anything like that, but I think you're absolutely right. It is a little surprising for a team that is coming off of not just a championship last year, but like, you know, however many 3-4 rounds like the previous couple years on top of that as well, for them to be like caught a little off guard. The behavior of Al Horford, I mean, anytime Al gets fired up, I mean, at this point, I just love Al so much, and he's just like, it's unbelievable what he's giving us, and we'll get into the roster and individual guys that have impressed us, but Al's in the top of the list for the fact that he doesn't seem to have slowed down at all with his, like, you know, he's been so steady his second stint here with the Celtics, but it does get me fired up to see him fired up, but at the same time, I don't know what he's upset about either. I'm glad we touched on the KCP stuff early, because I think that was probably the most notable storyline. And for any casuals that missed it, of course, Jason Tatum went down in game 1, landed on his wrist. It was a hard foul by KCP, but I didn't even think it was worthy of a flagrant. Did you feel of that as well?
No, I mean, his own coach was, I believe that's a play, was yelling at him to get up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got his mom. I'm sure you saw that in the tunnel. It was like, should I go to the Orlando locker? I'm like, tell your mom to go to bed. Like, get her out of here. Like I don't need a Tatum family rant this early. But her and Deuce, like, where's Deuce at? Deuce has gone away. I haven't seen Deuce in a while.
It's been a while. It has been a while since we've seen Big Deuce, getting bigger by the day. No, I think we're in total lockstep on that, though, on the foul. I don't think it was too bad. I think there was one, like the Anthony Black one pissed me off a little bit. If you saw Tatum got taken down a bit in game 4, just because it was like the same play. And it wasn't even like
the smackdown on the wrist,
yes,
right? Yeah, okay.
Yes, exactly. And it was just like, it felt a little on the nose to be like, look, I don't think Orlando, they've played very physical, obviously, through 4 games, and you know, that's kind of the entire theme of this playoffs, like I've been trying to say on top of every series. The change in the whistle is absurd between these series. Like, there's no 2 ways around it. And I'd say the Celtics series, the Pistons series, and the Rockets series are the ones in particular that have stood out to me, where it's like the physicality and what the refs are allowing these guys to get away with is at a new level. But so it wasn't as much the foul that Anthony Black had, was like the fact that he had to like stand over him for a second. It's like, all right, man, you're a backup guard on the Magic, and you guys are the worst guards in the NBA. So maybe just like lay off, you know, standing over the reigning champs for a second there. But
to touch on the ref thing real quick, Like, I loved how, I think it was the last Clippers-Nuggets game where there was that big scuffle between Gordon, Harden, Brown, and I mean, the refs looked at it, but it's like, hey, offsetting technicals. Like, there was no need. And, like, let's be honest, Gordon and Harden kind of, like, swung at each other. But yeah. I love that type of basketball. Like, we don't need to toss anybody out. We play on, let bygones be bygones. And I want the sport to continue to go that way because I don't like all the officiating, getting involved with everything, blowing the whistle all the time. So I like that general direction. And if the Celtics are going to, like, act like, if the Magic are going to get a reaction out of the Celtics when they do that to Tatum, like, they're underdogs. They have to find a way to get under their skin. They're going to do that, especially if the Celtics keep reacting to it and playing into it. They're going to keep doing it. And we'll see 100%. We'll see if teams next round or further in the playoffs do that as well.
Absolutely. And I think that, Orlando, like you said, they obviously have nothing to lose. There's not a soul out there that is picking them to win this series. So they're playing with house money. They're a more injured team than even what the Celtics have, despite the fact that Tatum missed a game and Holiday's missed a couple. But I don't think that they've crossed the line from, like, right now they are a hard-nosed defensive team, whatever. They can be pretty reckless with some of the fouls, but it certainly hasn't crossed the line from, like, reckless to, like, intent to injure guys. And hopefully it doesn't cross that threshold once we get into Game 5 and they know their back is really against the wall in that one. But so far, like, if I had to take it back to the original question with, like, what I learned from this series, from the Celtics, it's not much. I think the guys that have produced for us have been the same guys that have produced really all year long. I think that I never took the Magic lightly. I knew that they were a very physical team. They actually match up quite well against the Celtics given their size. And I think the most that I learned was just, I'm like, hey, the Magic are going to be good for a long time once they actually take the time to fill out their backcourt and, develop and get some shooting around Franz and Paolo. And I know that's not what this podcast is about, but that was my biggest takeaway. It was just that Orlando's kind of legit, and I think, there's really no shame in dropping one game to the Magic. As long as we take care of business tomorrow, I think I can be okay with how it's gone so far.
No, I mean, they did last year, did they go to 6 with Atlanta, the Celtics, in the first round?
That was 2 years ago.
2 years, but yeah, no, like I said, I take kind of everything in the first round with a grain of salt, and I don't even like saying that 'cause at the end of the day, we got a podcast to do, we got to talk about it, but, like, we see all the time teams kind of limp into the playoffs and then they're fine because they're a great team. At the end of the day, talent's going to win out every time.
So as we sit here and record, Celtics play Game 5 tomorrow in Boston. Any concern from you on your end, RJ, about this series going 6 or more games, or are we feeling confident that they're going to close out tomorrow night?
No, I think it's over. I think the Celtics took Orlando's best punches in Games 3 and 4. I wouldn't be shocked at all if you potentially see maybe a rather flat Orlando team come out in Game 5 after the disheartening Game 4 loss, and I think we'll see the Celtics wrap things up tomorrow night and be getting ready for, I believe, the Knicks.
Yep, yeah. So we'll be playing the winner of the Knicks-Pistons series at that point.
I shouldn't count the Pistons out like that. That's disrespectful. But right now it's looking, 2 wins on the road. It's the direction it's looking like it's going.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only other series that's tied right now is the Clippers-Nuggets at 2-2. Everything else is 3-1. So I'm operating under the assumption that we're going to see the Knicks next round. But obviously got to close out Orlando before then. And before we get too far ahead looking at the road for the Celtics, which is mainly what I want this to be about. Obviously, this team is not going to be happy with just a round 1 win. I think the title defense and I think the historical elements of people, the Celtics being, if you looked at some numbers, I don't really take too much stock into that. The Celtics being a historically great team last year, it really doesn't mean shit without the ability to defend the title. And it really takes going all the way to Banner 19 for Celtics fans out there to be happy. But before we can get into that, I did just want to take a bigger picture look at the Celtics season. I know on this podcast I'm guilty of probably not giving them as much attention as I should. Feel like they've flown under the radar a little bit. Last year they were obviously the best team in the NBA basically all season long. This year, teams like OKC and Cleveland were in the spotlight a little bit, but the Celtics still got to a 60-win season, obviously the number 2 seed in the East. And as somebody who'd watched the team all year long, who do you think impressed you the most? It doesn't necessarily have to be, like a most improved award or anything like that, but, on your takeaways of watching Celtics basketball, who impressed you the most this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think Peyton Pritchard has taken a huge jump. I think we saw last year that, hey, this kid, he can be like an NBA player. Like, he's a good role player. And I think he took this, he won the 6th Man of the Year award. That's a giant leap from being just, hey, a good bench player, a good role player, to being one of the best bench guys in the league. And I think what kind of stands out that to me is, like, he's an undersized guy. Like, you could see other teams kind of targeting him, but I think he works hard enough on the defensive side of the ball that he can keep himself out there and keep himself in games where a lot of times you'll see a guy that small get targeted by the other team. So overall, I've been impressed with him.
Yeah, I think that's the right answer there in terms of just like relative to expectation, like the fact that, we knew Pritchard was going to be a great bench guard. He had great moments in the finals last year, but making the leap to sixth man of the year was a stretch that I don't even think some of the most loyal Celtics fans saw coming. And what I liked about Pritchard, and I'm glad you kind of brought him up at this point too, because just kind of going back to Game 4, this hasn't been a great Pritchard series. He's averaging just 9 points a game against the Magic. I mean, our scoring across this series is down. I find it hard to believe we're probably averaging like 105 points if I had to guess, somewhere in that ballpark, much lower than what we were at in the regular season. But that being said, last night I don't think he scored. I think he took 2 shots.
He hardly even touched the ball, it seemed like.
Yeah, I mean, the ball wasn't coming his way. Like I think one of the shots he took, now that I think about it, was like a super deep three. Like he was still shooting the ball with confidence, but obviously he wasn't affecting the game like he normally does, putting the ball in the basket. But his defense that he played and the ability, like he's always been a really crafty rebounder, especially on the offensive glass. But his defense, like at some points it seemed like the matchup was for him to guard Franz. He's giving up like a foot in that matchup, and he forced Franz into some really tough turnaways. So it's just nice to see guys like, and obviously we were without Drew Holiday last night, for him to kind of step up and play better defense and find other ways to contribute, even when he's not scoring his traditional ways off the bench. So I don't know if you got that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think like they say, like effort is half of it, and I think he goes out there and he tries, and I think that's the biggest issue with some guys in the league that, we'll get to Luka later, that guys that just are lazy on defense and don't want to play defense. He's a guy that realizes, hey, I'm not the most talented player in the league, so I have to work my ass off when I play defense. And some of these other guys that are superstars, most guys, they flip a switch when it comes playoff time, but yeah, some don't.
Yeah, and I think that for Pritchard specifically, like the superpower of the Celtics is the ability for everyone to switch, right? Like it's just like Al Horford can guard in the perimeter, like Drew Holiday could guard a big. It doesn't matter, and it seems like if you're looking on paper at the guys that actually play on the Celtics roster, the only one that wouldn't fit into that mold is Pritchard, but I feel like his defense has improved a lot this season, like moments like him guarding the other team's best or second best player last night despite giving up a foot is just kind of encouraging for future rounds, because it's not going to get any easier for the Boston Celtics. I guess as we're looking at this Celtics team, right, I feel like what has encouraged me the most about the Celtics is that basically every player on the team, I think, is probably playing some of their best basketball of the entire year, except for maybe one guy. And I didn't really prep you on this. I don't even know if there's like a question in there, but I don't know if you feel the same way. It feels like this Celtics team is peaking at the right time. And I don't know if there's any, I guess if we could turn it more negative and be like, if you disagree, is there any guy that kind of stands out to you? Because I feel like for the most part, we're pretty dialed in right now.
Well, no, that's the hard thing. The team, listen, me, I would love to find something to nitpick and be negative about, but you really can't when they won the championship last year. Like Porzingis seems like he's going to be healthy. That's a big factor, I think, going forward. Like Holiday always continues to impress me. Like this guy doesn't care about the numbers. He plays and he cares about winning championships. And then Tatum and Brown, I just think like everything, like you kind of said, you didn't talk about him a lot, because I think when you win the championship, it's like you're waiting for April and May to come along to see if they can, validate that championship that they won.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think if I were to kind of go through and pick a concern, like for me heading into this series, and I think this is one of the only times I mentioned the Celtics and kind of going through their roster and naming all their guys, that I had some concern was Jalen's knee, right? Because Jalen was in and out of the lineup toward the end of the year. Even in game 1, it's like he came up lame a couple times. He looked hobbled. And then, Tatum misses one game, is the first game in his entire playoff career that he misses in game 2. And Jaylen Brown goes crazy. He had like 36 points or something like that, maybe even more. Looked incredible, was like the best player on the court in that game. And ever since, it seems like he's kind of been out of it mentally. But do you think, I don't know if you had the same concerns about Jalen heading into this series, but like, what do you make of him in this series against the Magic so far? Because it really was like, game 2 was awesome, and it really healed any concern that I had in that moment. And then since then, he's kind of come back down to earth. It seems like he's been out of it a little bit. So what do you make of his series so far against the Magic?
Well, that's the way I would describe it. It just seems like he's been out of it. There were so many moments last night where like he lost handle on the basketball. And I think that was that's like the old Jaylen Brown that we used to always criticize his handle. I think it just comes back to maybe a little bit of rust. And like, I know there was like, whether how hurt he was leading up, because I know there's like a threshold that guys have to hit to like be eligible for like postseason awards. So that was a question too. Like, is he hurt? Are they just like protecting him? Because he was only playing like 20-something minutes a night. There's all this like rule of how many minutes you have to play and how many games you have to play to be eligible. So I wasn't sure what exactly was going on with that.
Ultimately, so he ended up playing in like 63 or 64, and the cutoff is 65, which, if anything, indicates that it probably was like a real injury, like the fact that he actually missed some games, and it wasn't even like, hey, we're going to rest him a little bit, but we're still going to make sure he's above 65. Like, that wasn't in play, and so I don't know if he would have made an All-NBA team. He certainly would have been in consideration for me, but the rules are the rules, so he's simply not going to make it. And so, anyways, it is just kind of worth noting that I think that injury was more real than not, but it is just kind of fascinating the way, like, his physicality and aggressiveness. I feel like we only saw like 100% of him in that one game. The one game we saw was awesome, but it could be a little bit worrying, the fact that didn't happen when he was sharing the court with Jason Tatum. So I feel pretty good about the Celtics, getting through tomorrow as long as Jaylen Brown's knee can hold up for another game. I think we're in agreement that if it comes down to a specific player, it's mostly health-based at this point, but the fact that everybody's pretty healthy with the exception of Jaylen's knee, you got to feel good about that. And so as the Celtics sit here, I don't know if you've looked at the odds recently. I'm pretty sure the Celtics are the odds-on favorite to at least come out of the Eastern Conference and probably win the whole thing. So we're going to give you a little thought exercise here, right? The Celtics will win the 2025 NBA title if, and I need you to fill in the blank for me there, RJ. If
Tatum does not vanish for games in the postseason like he has in the past. I think, if you want to throw in, you could throw in Porzingis' health. I think the road to get there last year was soft enough where they didn't need Porzingis. I don't know if that's the case this season. So I think that's a big factor. And again, kind of speaking to that, if the competition is better, I don't know if they can get away with Tatum kind of vanishing for some games and then relying on Brown way more compared to Tatum.
I think that's a great point, and I think there's almost like a caveat on that, and I think it's Tatum's like outside shot and just ability to score the basketball, right? Because I don't want to come off too much of a homer here, but I do think Tatum has progressed to the point where like what he gives you on the defensive end and like how much he's improved as like a playmaker, there's such a high floor there that I don't think he's ever really going to like bottom out like maybe like what we saw like 3 years ago against the Warriors. Because even against the Mavericks last year, like I think he was still a net positive player even though the shot wasn't falling. So I think I would push back to the point of just saying like his ability to score. Like he can't have those games like in game one where he scored like 17 points against the Magic. It didn't look like he was adjusted to the flow of the postseason. Is that kind of what you're seeing as well, just like that ability to score, or is there anything else that I'm missing there with Tatum?
No, it's just the ability. Like you said, I think this is more of a thing of the past. Like I think there was that horrible game he had against the Sixers. I think it was like 2 postseasons ago where he had like no points until like the third quarter. To throw a question at you, do you think there's a chance that, say they make it to the NBA Finals, I think last year you saw Jaylen Brown was the Finals MVP. Do you think there's a chance that, I think Tatum was probably happy for Brown that he was the MVP, but I think we're all a little selfish. I think there was a part of Tatum that wanted himself. Do you think there's a chance he's going to maybe try to do too much? Come in if they make it. I don't want to jump too far ahead. If they make the NBA Finals, do you think he's going to be, because let's be honest, he says he loves Kobe, like he wants to be the NBA Finals MVP. I wonder if he's going to try to do too much and that'll ultimately hurt the team.
I think you're onto something. I wouldn't put it on my radar as like a real concern. Like I do trust Tatum's judgment. I do think the fact that he's got a kid that's like probably like 6 or 7 at this point, like he's much more mature than the average 26-year-old. But to say that like that it doesn't bother him at all that he's not a Finals MVP, that it doesn't bother him at all that Jaylen Brown has that award and people still throw that in his face that he wasn't, at least on paper, depending on who you ask, the best player on a championship team, that definitely bothers him. You get a couple beers and old JT, like no chance he doesn't actually feel like that.
You still see it every now and then on Twitter. People bring that up when I think it was game 3 where for some reason Brown sat on the bench for like 4 minutes at the end of the game when he was in foul trouble. And I saw tweets going out that like, oh, Brown, like you're giving up shots to this dude that you carried to win the NBA Finals last year. So I just wonder if that stuff will get to him and bother him. Will it be a detriment to the team? That's to say, but I think everyone's human. I wouldn't be shocked at all if like he wants to be NBA Finals MVP.
I think it'll be in the back of his head. I think even in Game 5 of the Finals last year, when the series was over, like you saw Tatum like really laying it on, like scoring some points late. Like was he trying to make sure he got his averages up a little bit to?
I will say when they announced Brown won, he did look like somebody stole his lunch money. That's what he looked like in the background. I don't think he looked overly pleased, but
honestly, I did too. I probably had the same face just because I'm like, I was just kind of hoping for whatever result was going to get like the least amount of shit for my guy, and no one's going to give Jaylen Brown shit for not winning Finals MVP. But people are obviously going to give it to Tatum like they have. So I was hoping Tatum was going to win it because it was close enough. I thought it was like a 1A 1B in that final. So I don't think it's a real concern, but I do think I think it would be in Tatum's mind if we are blessed enough to make it to the NBA Finals at this point. But I do want to give you the second half of that question, right? Because I do think, like we've talked about a little bit, the road for the Celtics is going to be much more difficult. The Celtics are going to lose and be eliminated in the 2025 NBA playoffs if, fill in the blank for me on that.
If they're in a high-stakes game and the three isn't falling and they don't change the game plan up at all and they're just going to live or die by the three. Kind of like we saw the game against OKC where they shot like 19 for 60 from three and they just kept hucking it up. So, yeah, that worries me that if they're just the three's not falling, if they're not going to be like, hey, we got to change it up here. We're going to lose this game. That's what worries me. And I'm not saying it's going to be like a every game thing. I'm saying, is there going to be that one game where it's a game 7? Say it's Boston versus Cleveland. Game 7 in Cleveland, the three's not falling, and they just keep like, hey, we'll get the next one. And the next one just doesn't come. That's what worries me.
Yeah. And I think I'm glad you brought up the three-point shooting and the dependence on that because this series has been a wake-up call for the Celtics. I think they've made 9 threes in back-to-back games. Obviously, they lost Game 3, but they won Game 4, making only 9 threes. For reference, they averaged 18 threes per game in the regular season, so that's a significant amount of points, 27 points you were getting in the regular season that you're not getting in the playoffs. And so I think my fear, I don't know if I would go as far as to say like, hey, we're completely screwed if we don't make the 3 ball. I think Kristaps, him not having him in the mix last year and how efficient he still is on that, like, those shots along the foul line, how effective he is in the post. I think that gives us an element of like, hey, we're not just asking Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum to beat somebody off the dribble if the 3 isn't falling. Like, we have this freak who's going to be a matchup nightmare. That gives me some peace. But also the fact that, at least we're going through a series right now where, forgive me for getting on my soapbox here and talking about it a little bit, I think Orlando has a really great game plan against the Celtics. I mean, they've talked about it a lot on the broadcast. Like, that team doesn't want to help ever. And so what that is forcing the Celtics to do is constantly hunt, the bad matchup, or they go into ISO looks a lot, and the ball isn't flowing around as much because, if Corey Joseph gets switched on to Kristaps Porzingis, they're not sending help. And then Porzingis kicks it out to an open shooter. They're just living with whatever the result of that post-up is going to be. Now, that instance, it might be a bucket, but when it's just, Franz Wagner in isolation on Derek White, like, that's not like a super easy matchup for us to win. And so I think my concern for the Celtics is that they will lose the finals if a team is able to mimic the way that Orlando is defending this team, because I do think they've stumbled upon something here, and it's just a better overall team. So
maybe it's good that they're seeing it now, though.
Yeah,
the Celtics
100%.
are seeing it now. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's a negative or a positive. I mean, I think it'd be a positive if we just got matched up against the Hawks and we just fucking steamrolled those guys in 4 games. I think that would be better for everybody if we're just a little bit less banged and bruised and have more rest heading into round 2. But I totally agree with you. There's just different ways to look at it. And so I think just kind of keeping it moving here. I've given out my playoff picks, and so I know we've kind of danced around the idea of where we think the Celtics are going to go, but I want to give you this platform to get your picks on record, right? You've been watching round 1 so far, so I want you to give me your conference finals predictions in each. You don't have to go every single matchup round by round, but when it's all said and done, who are going to be the 2 teams competing for the Eastern Conference Finals and the Western Conference Finals?
So I have Celtics versus Cavs, and I have Thunder versus Minnesota.
Thunder versus Minnesota. I think Celtics Cavs is stock, right? Everybody's going to have that. But
I honestly think if we went back the first time I was ever on the show, I think it was right around when the Knicks had just beat Cleveland a couple years ago in the postseason. I was trashing Donovan Mitchell. My viewpoint that you can't win with Donovan Mitchell being the best player on your team has not changed, and I'm going to stick to that. Cleveland, I think, is a deep team. I think they're a good team, but I'm way more think it's way more of a threat than compared to Indiana, and I think we kind of know what Indiana is. Exciting team. They can win a series or 2. That's kind of their ceiling, but I'm not super afraid of Cleveland, so I have the Celtics punching a ticket to the NBA Finals to try to repeat.
All right. Well, I think it's really fascinating the teams that you picked in the West. I have no idea what to make of the West. I think I ultimately settled on two different teams. I think I had Golden State and Denver before the postseason started, and it remains to be seen if either of those teams are even going to make it to round 2. But I think it's funny, like what we were just saying about the Magic and the way that they don't send help and they just kind of let everybody fend for themselves. Both Minnesota and OKC, there's really nobody to attack on the defensive end of the court too much. Like, they just kind of have 5 guys that they can switch, very similar to the Celtics. So I think those are 2 teams that would be primed to defend the way that Orlando is, as just like a side note. But on that note, I wanted to touch upon what you said about Donovan Mitchell as well. I think you're generally right. I think it would be a little far-fetched to see Donovan Mitchell as the best player in a championship team. But it doesn't change your opinion at all of how much he just kills us. Like, that guy annihilates the Celtics. I don't know if you saw, like, I think the most recent, obviously we played the Cavs 4 times this year. I think on the 4th game, like however many Mitchell scored on us, he like surpassed MJ the most points per game in history against the Celtics, like average. It's crazy.
Well, trust me, the game where the Celtics had that massive lead on Cleveland, I had money on the Celtics, and Cleveland came back. So I probably jinxed them by just betting on the Celtics with my luck. I mean, no, but at the end of the day, that's the regular season. We'll see what he's going to do in the playoffs. Yeah.
Okay. So obviously you have the Celtics making the finals. So who do you think OKC is ultimately going to beat Minnesota?
Yeah, I do think OKC is going to beat Minnesota. Obviously, I think it's looking like Minnesota is going to take down the Lakers up 3-1, and then I believe Minnesota would play the winner of the Warriors or Rockets. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if Minnesota finishes off the Lakers, they would play the winner of Rockets Warriors, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'll go Thunder there to get to the NBA Finals against the Celtics. I'm really hoping no matter who wins this Denver LA series that we see them really get tested in round 2, because Memphis just rolled over. Outside of like the big lead they had in game 3 over OKC, other than that, Memphis just rolled over and let OKC do whatever they wanted to them. So I think we're hopefully really going to see what OKC's like in hopefully like a week's time.
Yeah. See, and on that note, I mean, I think I have the answer to that question. But for me, when I was watching the Celtics during the last postseason run, like, I was pretty confident in the team. I thought we had definitely had a chance to win. I picked them. But, when you haven't done it before and we have seen this team get so close and have our heart broken in the Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA Finals, you never really know. But for me, I guess the sigh of relief, but also the same thing that also made me feel enhanced pressure was when Denver lost. Like, once Denver lost, I'm like, this shit is wide open. Like, I could not believe that Minnesota knocked off Denver this year.
I thought Denver and Boston were on a collision course last year.
Yep. I picked them. I can't stop picking that as my final matchup. That's what I picked this year.
Yep.
So, I mean, who knows? If they make it through the Clippers, that might be a blessing for them. But needless to say, I wanted to know, like, do you have a team in the playoffs where, like, you would feel that relief if they got knocked out before the Celtics had to deal with it? Is OKC the team that you're scared of the most? Because it doesn't seem like you're very fearful of Cleveland.
Yeah, it's probably OKC. I just think they seem like a really just complete team. Like, they feel like they're young. They've been playing together for a long time. They feed off of each other well. So I think like you said before, we haven't seen them actually do it really in the playoffs. So I'm like, should I really be afraid of them, or do I really want to play Minnesota? Because Anthony Edwards is playing like a dog, and I think that team is a team that has a bunch of experience after the run they went on last season. So ultimately, I'd probably go OKC there, though.
Yeah, I think that's probably the correct process.
It's the easy answer. It's kind of the easy, lame answer, but it is what it is.
I think that's right, too, because even though I didn't necessarily pick OKC to come out of the West, I do think as far as a threat to the Celtics, I mean, they were 2-0 against the Celtics this year. Like, it's a super small sample size because they're not a team we play 3-4 times a year, but, I feel like they are the textbook definition of, like, they would be able to do what Orlando is doing to us with how many. They don't have the size of Orlando. They're probably a worse rebounding team overall than Orlando too, but they defend their ass off. It's a historically great defense. They're not going to be afraid to switch, and they're not going to let the Celtics get into a motion where they're just swinging the ball around, chucking up threes. So I'm definitely the most scared of OKC of any team, but I think that road to the West is really tough. So I think final Celtics points here before we can move on to some off topic, or if you have any other random Celtics takes to throw at me. Looking at the road for the Celtics, right? I am going to try to knock on wood one more time. Assume we get through Orlando tomorrow night. How are we feeling about a series against the Knicks? Let's assume that the Knicks get through the Pistons, take care of business. They win one of the next 3 games, and we have a Celtics-Knicks series. Does that give you any pause, any fear at all?
No, I think this Knicks team is garbage. I can't. And actually, I think one of the prompts you had is like, who do you can't stand watching? I can't stand watching the Knicks. If I have to watch Jalen Brunson flail his neck back and foul bait one more time, no, I just think that's another team that everybody like got all excited for in the offseason when they got Karl Anthony Towns, and I just, good for them. They might handle Detroit and beat them in 5 games, but I mean, they limped into the playoffs too. I'm not afraid of the Knicks. I mean, I think the Celtics swept the season series with
4-0.
them. Yeah, so Celtics in 5, maybe 6, but I'm not concerned about the Knicks.
Yeah. I think Celtics in 5 would be my pick on that one. I just feel like the Knicks I'm not going to shit on the Knicks as much. I'll just say that they are like they're a talented offensive team. I mean, they're tough to stop. Like, we can call Towns whatever you want. People have mixed opinions on him. Like, he's still a 7-footer that can shoot the hell out of the ball. He's really talented. And Brunson, especially if the calls are going his way, like, he's damn near impossible to stop. And then you get those two in a pick and roll. And, obviously, like, Tibbs literally only plays his starters 40 minutes a game every game. So these guys have more experience playing together than any other lineup in basketball, I'd have to imagine. So all that being said, like, yes, they're way better offensively, but I feel like in the defensive end, they're going to be a much easier matchup for the Celtics. Like, the way that we're going to be able to attack Brunson and the way that we're going to be able to attack Towns, there's no one on the court like that for Orlando right now. Like, maybe Corey Joseph in the minutes that they play him, but everybody else is a plus defender. So I feel the same. I think we're going to roll through the Knicks. But I do want to ask, just like in general, like at this time last year, like, again, the Celtics hadn't done it before. A lot of people, they were obviously the favorite heading into the postseason. But are you more confident this year as we, head in toward the end of round 1 than what you were last year? Or were you more confident last year just because it seemed like the field was a little bit weaker?
Yeah, so I'm probably just as if not more confident that they're going to get there to the NBA Finals. I don't know if because like you said, once Denver went down, I was like, I don't think Dallas can beat them. I don't think Minnesota can beat them. But now I'm like, can the Thunder beat them? Like, could the Clippers or Nuggets beat them? So, like I said, I've already pretty much said that I don't take Cleveland that seriously. So I'm pretty confident they're going to get there. It's just about who they're going to face, and that's where I'm more fearful of.
Got it. Yeah, I think we're aligned on that. I think I'm probably more confident in the Celtics this year, just in the ability to, now that we've seen them win it, I think they have what it takes to win, and I think they're a better team than what they were last year. I don't know if you would necessarily agree with me. That'd probably would be a good question for me as the host to ask you if you think they're a better team. So I'll get to that in one sec. But I might as well give you my argument. I just think that everybody's a little bit more improved. I think Tatum has taken a leap. I think, obviously we talked about Pritchard. We talked about Al and his, lack of regression, the fact that he doesn't seem to age. I think Luke Cornett, weirdly, gives us another really nice double big lineup. I mean, Kristaps is healthy. Again, my only real concern is with, Jaylen Brown's knee. But I think besides that, I think we're a better team. So even though the field is better, I think that, we're an improved Celtics bunch. Do you feel the same? No,
I 100% agree. And, like, I hate to keep talking about, like, Porzingis' health, but he really is so good when he's healthy. Especially when you talk about when he gets around the free throw line, he's got some, like, dude that he's a foot taller than on him, and he just can shoot over him, or he's going to go to the free throw line every single time. And it always impresses me just the way that the Celtics can just rain these threes. As much as I was criticizing, like, living and dying by the three, like, it's incredible the way they've shot the three ball, like, the way that they've kind of transformed into that team the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Kristaps, I mean, he's shot the ball terribly from 3. I think he's hit like 1 or 2 threes like on this series, and he still impacts the game so much because, like you said, he has that low post game, he has like the mid post game, he has the rim protection numbers alone, like the walking matchup nightmare. Like, yeah, he changes everything for us, and the fact that we did what we did last year is still really impressive. So ultimately, again, I'm still more confident in the Celtics this year, but I think the road is just going to be, it's just so much tougher.
I think as a Celtics fan, I'm almost excited about the opportunity because it almost just felt like we walked our way to the finals last year, and now we really got to earn it to go get there. And like I brought up before, that's why we don't want these extra games on our, like, extra miles on our legs early on. That's why we don't want to get back on a plane and go back to Orlando. So that's why I think in a series like this, no disrespect to Orlando, handle business as fast as possible and move on.
Yep, absolutely. And so if you can steal a couple games of rest in round 2 and so on and so forth, I think that's going to be huge for this team.
One last Celtics. Yeah. So you have obviously your League Pass guy and you're in Texas. Do you get to choose what broadcast you listen to, like home or away? Is that how it works for, like, if you want to watch a Celtics game?
Yeah, I mean, in the regular season, yes,
Yeah, that's what
100%.
I mean.
Yeah, because obviously in the playoffs, basically everything's national TV. Although, did you happen to catch that the Bucks game the other day on Thursday night was on ESPNU?
I did see that. I was a little thrown off by that. I guess they couldn't, like, I know the NFL draft has to be on like 12 different stations, but I was very thrown off by that because I think it was on NBA TV too and ESPNU.
I don't think it was on NBA TV, which I didn't. Maybe it was. Honestly, I don't know. I didn't tune into a second of that live between the draft and then the Celtics were also playing, and then there was like the Lakers game that was starting after that. But
the reason I asked is because, and like this, we can end the Celtics conversation here. Is I cannot, and it's a little rant, because it's been all regular season. I watch the Celtics play. I hate the Celtics local broadcast. I think this new play-by-play kid, like what his name is,
out on
Drew Scott or whatever his name is, Scott Drew. That kid is like, he sounds like these young. I'm gonna go on a rant here. These young play-by-play guys, they all sound the same. Like Iron Eagles kid that got a job, like him calling the Olympics, like the one call he had, like cloudy with a chance of Curry. Like you should be put in prison for saying something like that. And like they're all knockoffs. Like they all sound the same. And this kid is just. He's got like 8 different nicknames for Peyton Pritchard. And then Scalabrine I thought Scalabrine was bad. I think Eddie House is legitimately brain dead. He sat on the post-game coverage after they had that bad game against the Thunder where they shot, and he's complaining about I just cannot stand the whole Homer aspect of it. And I just think this kid is just such a, I don't know. I can't stand, and that's the evil part of me, the part that I can't stand the fanboy experience. The broadcast ticks me off. It's terrible. From some people that grew up with Tommy Heinsohn and Mike Gorman to Drew Scott or whatever his name is, and Scalabrine or Eddie House who can't even form a sentence. Let's get Perkins on there too, and then we can have those two bozos go back and forth.
I think I agree. Eddie House, he was on one call, and I didn't enjoy it. I think I haven't minded Eddie House on like the occasional post game stuff that I'll watch for him, but like the play by play booth is a different animal.
Yeah,
and he was pretty
100%.
tough. But do you think you're on like an island with the anti-Drew agenda, or do you think a lot of people in Boston, like, did they bitch about him on sports talk radio? Like, how is the reception of this kid? Because he's like he's younger than us, and he came in and he took Mike Gorman's job. Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's a hard spot for people to like him.
I mean, I think there's probably other people that are thinking what I think, but they won't say it because he's a local guy that will call us for the team. Like, I just don't think he's very good. And I think if you really listen to these, like his voice and these younger guys, they all sound the same. They like with the same monotone voice. He stinks. Like,
so I'll give him some credit. I mean, it's hard for me to judge because like I am biased. I generally agree. I do think there is an epidemic among the younger play-by-play guys for like hunting like their bang, like their Mike Green bang.
Thank you.
Like
it's
they
exactly
need their catchphrase. And it's like, I get it because it's great to have, but it's like, how are you going to find a new slogan at this point? Like, we've been calling sports for 100 years at this point. It's not easy to find something that makes sense and that sounds good and is cool. So sometimes you don't have it. Like, it's okay if you don't have, like, did Mike Green come out the gate and say bang in year one? I don't know. I probably wasn't alive. So it's like, maybe ease into that catchphrase. You don't have to have a catchphrase year one. I think that's kind of where we're landing on this take.
And my last point is there's something endearing about like an old guy like Tommy Heinsohn that like played for the Celtics forever, hating the refs. It's different when a bum like Brian Scalabrine, who had no contribution to the one ring, has to just act like a complete Celtics suck off like every single game. Like this doesn't need to turn into an RJ rant about the NBC Sports Boston broadcast, but I would rather listen to the game on mute. If the game is on ESPN or NBC Sports Boston, I'd rather listen to Doris Burke, and that's saying something.
Yeah, Doris is not my favorite, to say the least. It is funny though, because like on your original question about like the different broadcasts, like you have some crews that are just like objectively like turn off. Like I think I'll send some hate toward Phoenix for this. I think the Phoenix crew is abysmal, and then they top it off with like this in-game, like, because also if you get the premium league pass, you don't get the commercials, right? So you're seeing like the in-arena hosts, which I mean you got to be a really charismatic guy or gal to be an in-arena person for a team, especially if you're in Depressionville where the Suns have been all year.
Yeah,
just like the one of the worst seasons out. They're thanking God for Nico Harrison as the only thing worse this season. Anyway, I digress. The in-arena guy is is a lot. There's way too much going on there, and it is just a hard watch. Like any sort of Suns broadcast, you're like, if this wasn't bad enough, I got to deal with the worst combo in the booth, and then the terrible in arena.
And I will say, I am being a little unfair because I don't have NBA League Pass, but I do occasionally stream some games illegally, and some of these the Sixers, broadcast team for, I think it's NBC Philadelphia, they're pretty bad too, being super biased. So I think that's just how it goes, unfortunately.
You need a degree of bias. So it's difficult for me to evaluate the Celtics guys. Like I know it's not Mike and Tommy, but so it's like I have mixed feelings about it, even though I've watched it a lot. So I think we covered it. I mean, I feel like we're both aligned. So ultimately, hey, I don't know, I'm bearing the lead here, terrible host, but in the finals, are you thinking the Celtics are going to repeat? That'll be our last Celtics take here. Do you think, obviously, they get there, assuming it's OKC, are you confident that they're going to be able to close that series?
Yes, I'll say my official prediction would probably be Celtics in 7 over the Thunder.
Yep, going on the road in OKC, that'll be a tough. I might have to make it out for that. OKC is a short drive for me. It's like 2.5 hours. It's basically the same as getting to Dallas. So I probably shouldn't go. I don't know if we need to recap me going to 3 straight Celtics losses last year, or 2 straight Celtics losses. I was at 2 of the 3 losses in the postseason. It was just really bad. So, well, on that note, I think we covered the Celtics ad nauseum there. I think we're feeling pretty good about it. Just as we've both been watching a lot of basketball over the past week or so, what's your favorite non-Celtics, we'll say, first-round series? Is there one series that has stood above the pack that you've enjoyed watching?
I think it's the Clippers versus Nuggets. I've very much enjoyed watching this series because Kawhi Leonard was one of my favorite players when he was like he probably still is in his prime, but I'm saying when he was healthy, playing consistently, and I think it's awesome to see him back healthy, playing great basketball, because he really is a top 5 player in this league when he's healthy. And then I think what I love about the Nuggets, like, perspective of it is, like, we're really learning is the supporting cast around Jokic good enough? Was 2 years ago an outlier because maybe they ran into Miami in the NBA Finals. So I've loved the storyline with that. I've been saying all along this is going to go 7 games. I don't know who's going to win it, but that's probably been my favorite series to watch so far.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that was, I think, the series I had dog-eared, and a lot of NBA fans had dog-eared before. It's like, this is going to be epic, and it has every game. I think there's only been one game where the Clippers whooped their ass in Game 3. That was a blowout, but I mean, you had the Aaron Gordon buzzer beater dunk at the end of the last game, which was literally the closest buzzer beater I've ever seen. I think it's one of those they ruled it a bucket on the court. If you missed it, Jokic put up like a crazy fall.
I was going to say he's lucky that Gordon put that in because that was a wild shot.
Yeah, it was. They didn't have a lot of time left, but that was not the look you wanted. And Gordon just flew up and dunked it at the buzzer. But if they had called it a non-bucket on the court, and then they look to review it or whatever, like, I'm sure, like, whatever the ruling on the court has to stand, because I didn't see like one angle where it was conclusive. But no, that series has been amazing. Just like, I think you really get to a sense of the team's personality, when they're going up against the same team every single night and you're watching them night in, night out. Is there a team, I find it hard to believe it's not the Knicks. Who's the team you hate watching the most? Is there a team that upsets the Knicks in that situation, or what?
No, but I mean, like, yesterday it was definitely like the Lakers with the big lead. Like, I kind of texted you, I had money on the Lakers, and then like Luka we kind of touched on it earlier, like that Lakers team, it seems like when they went on that big win streak after the Luka trade, people were like victims of the moment. They're just, like you said, they're undersized, they're not good defensively, and not to keep talking about Luka, but I think you look back last year, what was the story coming out of the NBA Finals? He doesn't play good defense. Like, this guy just doesn't get it. He doesn't, and all of a sudden, like, he like verbally assaults these officials every single time this guy gets breathed on. And I'm so happy because did he kind of get tripped there at the end of the game yesterday? Maybe a little bit, but I'm happy they didn't blow the whistle because he goes down on everything. So you get what you deserve. And this guy just does not get it. Like, he's fat, he's lazy, he's out of shape, he plays no defense, and all he does is cry. He's become so unlikable, and they get everything they deserve. I hope Minnesota torches them tomorrow night, and that this is done.
Is this a Nico Harrison was right take brewing inside of you?
No, it's actually not. It's not.
See, it's like, how far do we want to go?
Yeah, no, exactly.
It is funny, like, every time the Lakers lose, like, you look around on Twitter, I'm like, it's not a bad 24 hours for Nico relative to what he's seen over the past couple months. But no, last night was bad. It's like when, like, Jaden McDaniels is the guy that Luke has been matched up on for the most part, and like, he's a guy that his offense comes and goes, but it's like, all right, now he's 3 for 4 for like really awesome offensive nights, and you go back and you watch all 20 something of Jaden McDaniels' points. there's one commonality between the clips, and it's just like he's every single play. It's like he has to put forth no energy, and he's just around Luka. It's just at some point he needs to buy him because Luka doesn't understand. Like he was in a good situation in Dallas. It's to no his fault. He didn't opt to leave Dallas, but like they had a team that could make up for his defensive shortcomings. And I don't know if you're seeing the same thing. The Lakers aren't built for that. Like
no, I mean
JJ
Austin
Redick
Reeves, great offensive, not great, but he's good on the. Austin Reeves is a terrible defender. Another guy that just horrible foul yesterday under the hoop with the and one to give Minnesota the lead late in the game.
Yeah, you're not. He's not going to be one to pin Jaden McDaniels in that situation. So, all right. So we covered the negative. Is there any teams you like watching? Maybe a little second team brewing inside you as you're watching the playoffs in the first round here.
I wouldn't say a second team, but I've have found some entertainment in watching the Warriors. I think the game, Saturday night's game, where I think they had like 22 points halfway through the second quarter, and then Steph got hot, and I don't love Draymond Green, but just the Draymond of it all, of just like he's just acting like a lunatic, trying to get in guys' heads. And so I would say the Warriors are one of my teams I've really liked watching. It's hard to not enjoy Steph when he really gets it going. Like there's nobody that shoots the three ball like him.
You coming around on Steph is like watching like the end of the Grinch movie right now. It's pretty. It's a pretty great experience for me. I feel like I've been on the other end of some of your Steph hate over the years. I remember like pounding the lunch table for him in like 2013.
I don't know if I ever brought it up on the show, but at one point on my notes section on my phone, like the notes app, I had just to troll people. It was like 20 players better than Steph Curry in the NBA. That's how invested in a troll I was. And not kidding, one of the players was Rudy Gobert. Like I was like deeply in trying to tick people off. But no, I think as he's gotten older, and maybe I've gotten older and realized that like maybe I should chill out on the trolling, that I've come to really enjoy watching him play. I'm actually scrolling through my phone right now to see if I have that on there. I doubt it, but
there's
the notes I actually do have it. If you want me to read it.
Oh, please do.
So this is from December 31st, 2019.
Okay.
Players better than Curry.
So he's a 3-time champ at this point, if my math is correct. But go on.
I believe so. So this is in note order. These are the 20 guys. I don't know if it's 20 guys. This is really bad. LeBron, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Giannis, James Harden, Kyrie Irving. You ready for this one? Kemba Walker.
Ooh.
Luka.
Was he a Celtic at that point, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Dame, Anthony Davis, Jokic, Joel Embiid, Jimmy Butler, Paul George, Karl Anthony Towns, Russell Westbrook, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Bradley Beal, and lastly, Pascal Siakam.
RJ's watching the 2019 Raptors. You're like, it wasn't all Kawhi. Like, Siakam's got something here.
I was expecting that to be on my phone still.
Oh, that's great. That's tough to beat. I mean, I don't think we can cover any other NBA stuff after that. I was gonna say the only time in my life where I've done a similar exercise where like my generational hating is carried over into the notes app is when I worked at my first job here in Dallas, where I was like working for that company that covered the Cowboys. And like naturally it was like every single day people would talk about the Cowboys. So I'm exposed to like the craziest of like the most obnoxious fan base that there is. And like, so naturally these people are so brainwashed and thinking their team's elite. I was like position by position. I was like, all right, 10 QBs better than Dak right now, because I'm tired of saying that. And it was like 10 people better than CeeDee Lamb, like 10 tight ends better than fucking Dalton Schultz at that time. Like I was, anyway, I went down that road once before.
Letting that just hate run through you. Sometimes it feels good.
But it's like, in what context would you need to read? I guess I probably did use it in passing, like when people were like, you know, mainly about Dak. I think the other positions were a little bit overkill, but no, that's good stuff. Well, thank you for. Before we let you go here, RJ. I mean, is there any other random topics that we should touch on here? I mean, we're fresh off the NFL draft. I mean, you know, is there a Shedeur Sanders take you're trying to get off? Do we?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of him, but it felt to me like, so he doesn't get drafted Thursday night. It goes to Friday night. It's like, okay, he's going to get drafted tonight. When he doesn't get drafted Friday night, it's like, okay, now something's happening. Now there was communication amongst owners and front offices that we're not going to take this kid to make a statement because we don't like the way he carried himself in these, pre-draft meetings. And I don't agree with that because so many NFL teams have issues evaluating the quarterback position. I don't want to go on a Mel Kiper type rant right here, but there's so many teams that cannot find the quarterback. So to be cute like that, I think is just so dumb, and to play like the moral high ground of it, of like, oh, we don't like the way he carries himself. And I don't say this kidding. How many NFL teams have a guy that like beat a woman on their team? Like seriously, like there's a lot of them. So like we don't like the way that this kid carries himself. Like he's not a criminal.
Like he's
done.
cocky.
Yeah. Like I just think
he's entitled.
Like if this kid, 3 weeks ago this kid was supposed to go number 1. And now you're telling me he's going to go in the 5th round or 4th round, whatever, to Cleveland. All the teams that pass on him, who, for all we know, could be a generational talent just because we don't like his attitude. I think that's ridiculous. And like I said, I'm not even a huge fan of him. Like I don't like his dad, but like that's ridiculous.
I totally agree. And again, I don't watch that much college basketball. I probably watched 3 Colorado games over the course of his career just because they were like super fun to watch. But it's like, to have a guy, there's just too many teams that need a quarterback to get away with doing that. Like if you're the Steelers, like what are you doing? What is your plan? You're going to get on your knees and pray for Aaron Rodgers to come save the day, the most unreliable person in the sport, to save it when you have a team that's like ready to go. Like that doesn't make sense to me. Like obviously there's some teams where like I get it. If you didn't have a starting grade on him, and he is a lot off the field, there's a circus that's going to be around him that you're bringing into the team.
You don't want that around a backup quarterback. 100%
understand
that.
You're the Steelers. It's like if any team can withstand that has the infrastructure to support that and not let it get carried away, it'd be like a coach like Mike Tomlin and a team like the Steelers. So I just think I get it for the teams that, again, they didn't have a high enough grade to draft him as a starter, and he's too high profile to be a backup, and that's why the slide happens. But there's too many teams without a quarterback. Like, we see so many shit quarterbacks every single Sunday in the NFL. It's like, we're covered as Patriots fans, and, like, there's obviously some other teams out there, but, Raiders, they don't have a plan after Geno.
Nope.
Like, the Jets, the Browns, they obviously eventually got him. They could have taken him earlier. Like, even the Giants got a bunch. But
not to go too deep into it, but, like, outside of the fact that he slipped and he's going to lose a whole bunch of money, not that the kid probably needs money, but like compared to being a 1st round pick and like a 5th round pick, the money is guaranteed. Money is insane. But from a team that you landed on, like I think you would, if you want to play, I mean, like he could still be the starter there. Like their depth chart is they drafted some other kid right around him, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and I'm blanking on Deshaun Watson. Like he could be, if he's as good as he says he is, he could easily win the starting job.
He landed in a good spot. Like he really
Flacco's
couldn't have gotten in a better spot.
40 years old. Deshaun Watson is he's done. Like if I was Cleveland, I would just cut bait. Like worst contract, worst trade in probably the history of sports potentially. But it's over. I think you just have to cut your losses. But this is an NBA podcast, not an NFL podcast.
Hey, no, I think that's the first NFL we've done, but it felt right. And then the only other topic I had for you here was, do you have a strong opinion either way? I mean, we kind of texted about it, but like this debate on Twitter right now, for any of those that aren't on Twitter or X, I mean, first of all, good for you. The app is complete
pretty
garbage.
bad.
I wish I spent less time on it. It's only gotten worse in recent years. But that being said, there's a debate going on right now. Who would win? One gorilla versus 100 humans. I think it's mostly men, but we want to be inclusive here, so I'm just going to say humans. And people are weighing in. There's a lot of Team Gorilla floating around out there that one gorilla would whoop ass. I don't know where you stood on it, and I just want to get your thoughts.
If you had 100, like, let's just say 200-pound men that were ready for war, that were ready to give their life for this fight, I think the humans would win. But what's going to happen is you're going to have one guy get his limbs ripped apart real early, and then it's not going to be like, hey, let's all attack this gorilla at once. People are going to start running. Like, there's just no way, like, the gorilla would win, because unless 100 men, like, at the same time, they could, like, we're going to kill this gorilla, then they would win. But if not, like, I'd be the same way. If I got put in that and I saw some dude get his head ripped off by a silverback gorilla, like, I'm like, okay, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. And I'm like, that's what would happen.
The first guy's getting pinwheeled around and being used as a club,
literally,
by the gorilla. Like that, I totally agree. I mean, we're in lockstep because, like, yes, 100 men could eventually take down a gorilla, but you need to be so locked in I don't want to. I mean, we're already we're already walking the line here. So I'll say I think it needs to be like a crackhead-esque type of person that's willing. Like, there's no financial incentive where somebody's willing to get mauled by an insane person.
If you remember that like bath salts epidemic a long time ago, everyone just needs to do bath salts and just get in there and just go to war with that gorilla.
Yeah, or it needs to be like big AI programming. I completely agree because yes, in theory it works, but it's also like we didn't establish the rules. Like, we're not just picking like, offensive linemen of a couple NFL teams. It's like, yeah, those are the 1%, but it's like if we're randomly selecting these people, they're not locked in. I think we covered it. So good stuff there, RJ. I think you're on the right side of history with that one. So Team Gorilla over here as well. But RJ, thank you so much for your time. I think that's going to do it for this episode of Words with Wallace. Of course. And, the Celtics have a long road ahead. We're not going to, even though it seemed like we were victory lapping a little bit after round one here, and we're not even all the way through that series, we'll definitely have to bring you back as we hopefully get a little bit closer to Banner 19. But before I let all you guys go, be sure to follow @Words with Wallace on everything. That includes Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to support the show @Words with Wallace on social media as well. And RJ, you're basically retired from Twitter, but can you plug your Twitter real quick if the people want to know where to find you?
@RJ Rosazza 5. ROSAZZA.
Easy to find. Awesome, guys, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.